Hey, it's JR Lay, and I'd like to welcome you back to the Banking on Digital Growth podcast. I want to ask you something. When was the last time that your bank or credit union's website made you feel something, or just even stood out from the other bank and credit union websites that scatter the internet? The truth is, most bank and credit websites don't make you feel anything. Why? Why is that? Because too many financial brands are stuck in the commodity trap. They rely on tired messaging. They all promote the same great rates, amazing service, laundry list of lookalike features that every other single financial brand promotes. That's why joining me for today's conversation is my co-host, Derik Krauss. And today we're going to discover why commoditization, why the cage of commoditization is killing growth in financial services, and most importantly, how you can escape it by transforming your financial brand into a helpful, human-centric, and purpose-driven guide. But before we dive in, if you want to know where your financial brand is either blending in or standing out in a digital-first world, my friends over at Metrify can help. That's why I want you to text me, 832-240-1922, because I want to show you how you can benchmark your website in just 2 minutes. Because in 2 minutes, you're going to be able to see how you can differentiate your financial brand and drive real, tangible digital growth.
Derik, you and I were sitting here laughing because I was hearing tiny footsteps in the background.
Yeah, kids,
little pitter patters.
Yeah, kids are being loud upstairs, so we might have some good background sound on this episode.
Because between your kids and my kids, that's the thing. It's we've got a lot of little rugrats running around our houses these days, and
yeah,
you've got another one on the way.
Yeah, so we have 4 and 1 on the way.
And that'll be a little bit later this year, but
September.
We have 4 as well. So that's 8 between the two of us. And then you add yours, you're gonna have 9. We just need one more, and we get a basketball team. We run 5-on-5.
All right. Well, I thought this was our last one, but I'll tell my wife after this, Katie. We have a mission now.
I wasn't talking about you and Katie. I was talking about me and Melina.
Oh wow. Because your oldest or your youngest is 7?
8. She just turned 8.
Okay.
Yeah. So we got an 8. So everyone just aged up.
Yeah.
That's why I was like 9. No, we still have a 9-year-old. My 9-year-old will turn 10 in August. So we have 15, 13, almost 10, and 8. So literally every 2 years. And when Ludwig was born, for a month, we had 4 kids, 5 and under. And
oh man,
that was wild.
Yeah,
that was wild. But no, if Delina hears this, I think she's good. She likes holding babies. So if you ever need someone to hold your little one, just let us know.
Yeah,
because I think the best, she gives them back. She doesn't have to take them home and do what we did with the 4. But
I was gonna say, when the new one's born, we'll ship him to you for a few months, and once you got him sleeping, just send him back.
All right, no lie. I think when we had all of our kids, the longest it took to get one of them to sleep through the night was about 6 to 8 weeks. My wife was like a genius at getting all of the kids and the whole sleep hygiene thing and getting them comfortable. But no, when I hear parents are like, yeah, my kid's like 1 and not sleeping through the night, I'm like, oof, I feel for you. then the next big thing is the potty training, right?
Yeah.
And I will tell you, my wife found a book, it was referred by another mom with a lot of kids, called 3-Day Potty Training.
You were telling me about that when we were in California. Yeah.
In the car, it works.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. Like, by that 3rd day, those first 2 days, you're like, what is going on? What are we doing? This is hard. I'm getting accidents around the house. But if you stick with it, by the 3rd day, you literally have a transformational breakthrough.
All right. I have to keep that in mind.
But speaking about transformational breakthroughs, I think it's a good segue. Now is the time, if you're listening to this and you're at a bank, you're at a credit union, now is the time for your transformational breakthrough, because I've been saying this for the last 23 years, when I ask bank and credit union leaders why someone should open an account or apply for a loan at their institution, it's typically the same pattern. We have great rates, we have amazing service, and we have these look-alike laundry list of product features. They're not saying it that way, but that's essentially what they're articulating. And I'm like, well, that's what everyone else is saying. So my question, as we start off, why do so many financial brands default to the same tired messaging, saying the same thing?
Yeah, I think it heralds back to how they got started, and because how credit unions and banks got started is they just needed to open a location in a physical area, and they could have a checking account and savings accounts and loan products that were the same as everyone else's. And it didn't matter back then because there was no internet. There was no online banking. And so if someone wanted one of those accounts or wanted a loan, it being in that physical location with those people was enough because that was the only way that they could transact with you. So then the internet comes along, and now AI has come along, and these credit unions and banks are still competing on these commoditized services, and all of them say, well, we have better rates and we have better service. And that's usually not true. But their products are all the same. And now there are thousands of places where you could go to get basically the same account, basically the same loan, because they're mostly just commodities at this point. So I think it goes back to they're just operating the same way they basically have for decades, but the environment around them, the world around them has changed, and their products have not changed along with it.
You recently made a post on LinkedIn, and you were talking about this. And I pulled this up to quote you. You say AI is accelerating the demise of banks and credit unions that have nothing to offer but better rates. So we were talking about because people can now simply ask ChatGPT, where can I get the best rate? You continue, while humans will only consider a few FIs because of the time and effort it takes, AI can do 10 times the research in mere seconds. So you continue, if you're selling a commodity product and all you have to compete on is rates, AI will reveal instantly if yours is actually the best, and virtually no one has the best rate all the time. You've got to differentiate, which is the whole point of our conversation today, because it's like this has been something that I've been talking about for 23 years. I wrote about it in Banking on Digital Growth. I mean, it's 5 years old at this point, the book, but it's like every year it feels like the relevancy of that book continues to increase. Where do we break through this commoditization cage?
It's a strategic question. I feel like it. So you've talked a lot about how even though technology is changing the scene, the most important technology is up here. It's the mind, and transformation of an organization starts with human transformation and people being able to change. And I don't think people within financial institutions developing differentiated products and services is a technological problem. It's a human change problem. It's a strategic problem. So
is it a belief? Is it a belief? Like, and the reason I ask if it's a belief issue, and this has come up actually recently in a few of the team alignment workshops I've facilitated. I poke on the responses that, and we ask the question, why should I open an account or apply for a loan at your institution? And the patterns come back, and it's pattern matching. Nothing's changing. Mm-hmm. And I'm asking, how much of this is your belief is driving your behavior? Like, because what is not being communicated, interestingly enough, is the expertise, the wisdom, the guidance of that organization. It's all product driven and not expertise driven. But when you look in other areas of financial services, I'm starting to see some institutions positioning around or communicating that it's their expertise, their wisdom, their methodologies that are their differentiator. What's your take on that idea of belief is what keep people stuck in the commoditization cage? How they perceive themselves?
Yeah, I think it certainly could be. If I guess first, if you don't believe that differentiation is necessary, that would be your first problem. If you do believe that it's necessary, then what do you believe that you need to do? What direction do you believe you need to go in? And I think for a lot of institutions, it's just change is hard. They're not sure which direction to go, and so they stay the same. Like,
Mm.
and I think the point of differentiation is to be different. So for some, that could mean harnessing their wisdom. For others, it could mean having a product that serves a particular need. And uh, the main point is, and here's something I think is interesting. I think part of the problem actually came about in the 90s, where you had, and this is for credit unions specifically, I guess for banks maybe not so much, but with credit unions, many of them, they were largely seg based, focused on a particular niche, and then in the 90s they started to go community, and then they're like, oh, we need to address everyone in the community, so now like commoditize products and services, and now we're back to an environment where those being a commodity is hurting them.
It's like the grass wasn't, we think that the grass is going to be greener on the other side, but then when we get to the other side, we're like, maybe it wasn't so good. And this is something too, it's written about in, like, for example, blue ocean strategy. When you think about commoditization, you think about battling it out in the bloodied red waters of competition, of commoditization, where the opportunity is to get out of the red ocean and go find or create your own blue ocean that's calm, it's clear, and perhaps it doesn't have to be big. I was talking with someone recently, and they were like, yeah, I mean, for an institution to be economically viable, you really need about like 10,000 account holders. When you look at like scale and efficiency, particularly when it comes to technology. So I think like the idea of the niche brand, and we've talked about this before, is a very, not just interesting, but a very practical way to escape commoditization. But what about this principle of, and this does connect and resonate when it comes to escaping commoditization? It's 4 words. And when I share these 4 words, they're like, I've never really considered this way. Help first, sell second. And that comes from not just positioning, but also content. And the role that content is going to continue to play in the age of AI, not just SEO, but now what we're looking at, which is just called maybe a new flavor, geo, when it comes to large language models. When you have that belief, when you own that, like help first, sell second, and then driving even your content, your positioning, your product positioning on your website, what begins to change when that mindset begins to change?
You mean around the help first, sell second? And
yeah, that always seems to resonate with leadership teams. Like, we can do that. And they were like, their belief is like, we have done that in person. We've never done that digital first.
Yeah, I would hope that they've been doing that all along, like you said, right? I'm a big believer in you deliver value up front, and then if people are going to see that value and they're going to want to do business with you. So, and that's part of the reason why for a long time in our company we've published content that's helpful for people, and that's led to people wanting to do business with us. And credit unions and banks can take that same approach, and there's a huge opportunity for that today because now people are going to ChatGPT or insert other LLM app, and they're going to that app constantly and asking it for advice and guidance. I know I do all the time. If I've got a big decision I need to make, or even a little decision, I'm going to ChatGPT and I'm asking it for advice and information, and it's often doing web searches, and it's looking for information somewhere. And if you can be the one that shows up and providing that information, similar to how it's been with Google for a long time now, but it just with AI, there's a growing opportunity on that front to provide people with helpful information.
It is so interesting you bring this up, and this was not planned. We have a general idea of what we're going to talk about in these conversations, but I pulled up ChatGPT on my phone, and I'm just going to read some of my most recent chats. Last night, best credit card options.
Who showed up?
And here.
I'm super curious.
I would tell you, it just closed out on me. Let me see if I can pull this back up again. Best credit card options. Yeah, it's continuing to crash out on me. But what it was, I think the prompt was something along, and I don't know why it's been having this problem recently. Every time I go back to try to get my old chats on my phone, it keeps crashing. It was along the lines of, what's the best credit card for groceries?
Okay.
That's what I asked.
Interesting.
And what came back were, there were a couple of American Express cards. There was a Citibank card. And then there was, I think, a Capital One card. And then it gave me a comparison table. It essentially took what would take me probably a couple of minutes of comparison and back and forth and looking through different windows and writing some stuff down. It distilled it down in about 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And but my personal behavior over time, another one is like, what's the best rental car company in Sorrento? You and I were talking. We both just got back from trips ourselves, and we were in South Italy with our family, and we did not have a car because with 4 kids, those tiny little roads, we had a driver. But I was like, well, let's just see if we can get a car. I was like, I don't want to get a car. I want to see if we can get a car. I want more agency. She wants to get around. I'm like, okay, fine. I'll entertain the idea. And so I went here and chatted back and forth. So it's just my own personal behavior is I am using the internet search that I would historically have used perhaps 6 to 12 months ago. It's not, my behavior is changing, everyone's not there yet.
But a lot of people are getting there. More and more are getting there. Yeah.
Correct. And then it's like, okay, now where's this idea of commoditization, something, once again, that I've been pushing on for 2 decades? Can't ignore this anymore. So I guess the question is well, what do we do next? Where do we go from here? How do we escape the commoditization cage, the commoditization trap? Like, what's that next level up look like, particularly for community institutions that want to truly differentiate and not just survive, but thrive, which probably we need to talk about surviving versus thriving and how that differentiates how we go to market. But what's your take on where's the opportunity here? Hey, it's JR, and I just wanted to take a minute to thank you for tuning into today's podcast. If you're ready for your financial brand to stop blending in and start standing out, send me a text right now. 832-240-1922, because I want to send you a free website benchmark assessment from my friends over at Metrify. In just a few minutes, you're going to see exactly where you have growth opportunities and where you have gaps, but most importantly, what you can do to bridge those gaps so that you can level up your digital growth. Now, let's get back to the show with Derik.
Yeah, that's making me think of a conversation I had with Corey LeBlanc at Locality Bank maybe a month or 2 ago, because they've grown from 35 million in assets 3 years ago to 300 million in assets.
And I want to pause you on that point. Something that you and I think about, that's a 10x.
Yeah.
And the book that has influenced a lot of our own thinking, 10x is easier than 2x. So to see what they've done in 3 years, to have a 10x multiplier, can't go understated that the philosophy of 10x is easier than 2x is completely possible.
Yeah, so I was talking with Corey about this because they have focused in on their niche is business banking in South Florida, and they're digital first. And so I asked him, said, if you were to talk with a community bank or a credit union that wanted to follow in your footsteps, follow in your success, uh, be niche focused, what would you tell them to do? And he said, well, I wouldn't tell them to do anything. I would ask them, who do you want to be? And what's the one thing that you can be the best at? And I think that's really wise. It's very similar to the question that you mentioned, and the same question I've asked a lot of financial institutions is, why would someone choose you instead of a competitor? And if you can't answer that question, if there's nothing that's making you different, then you're in trouble. So what do? I think it really starts with, who do you want to be? What can you be the best at? And if there's not a solid answer to that question, I think you're in bad shape. But for you, when you're talking with financial institutions, and I'm sure these are conversations you've had with them, what have you seen stops them from deciding who they want to be and what they can be the best at?
Man, that's such a good question, and I want to dance around this question for a bit and toss it back and forth because it's deep. And what I'm finding is institutions, they don't have the courage to do the deep work
Mm-hmm.
to answer the question. I was talking to an institution that was interested in a team alignment workshop, and they were looking at, well, we want to see how we compare in the marketplace. I'm like, that's an interesting question, but you're asking all the wrong questions.
Yeah, that's going external to say, who do you guys think we should be, versus looking internally to say, who are we and who do we want to be? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I got on a call with them and their leadership team. And I was just very honest. I was like, your questions are valid, they're sound, but they're the wrong questions right now.
Mm.
Those questions should be secondary to you looking internally first. Because they've had some challenges when it comes to growth. They went through a rebrand and whatnot. And I was like, and one of their leaders was like, these are very uncomfortable questions. I go, interesting. And I was like, tell me more. Like, let's just open up the space.
Yeah.
And I was like, why? Why do these feel uncomfortable? And like, because it's forcing us to address things that, it's like looking in the mirror, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who do you see when you look in the mirror? What do you see when you look in the mirror? This is something that I've been working on myself now. It's the whole reason that you and I rebooted this thing, was because I saw my future self as beyond my past self. But I knew that I could no longer be beholden to my past, and my past was going to be the anchor, the weight that was going to hold me down and not allow me to ascend to the next level that I knew I was being called to. Yeah, there's a spiritual context here for me personally. But unless we're going to have those difficult conversations starting with ourselves as individuals on the leadership team, and maybe it's just giving ourselves permission to dream a little bit, because it's such a broad question of who do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah. Yeah. And I can relate to the challenge, because
Of course.
in our own business, little bit of our history is, so 10 years ago, we started working with financial institutions on website design. And when we first came into the space, we looked around at the websites and we said, oof, there are a lot of bad looking websites here. I think if we just make good looking websites, we can make a good business out of this. And so that's where we started. And that was our differentiation at first, is we were coming outside of the industry, coming in and saying we can bring better design to this industry. But then as we went, we've talked about this, the cognitive dissonance that we experienced eventually is we're making pretty websites, winning lots of Diamond Awards and other awards, and that's great, but are we actually moving the needle for anyone? No idea. Okay, we got to figure that out. So started diving into analytics, research, usability testing, and eventually A/B testing. But initially, those were not capabilities that we had. And so developing those was hard. And it probably took several years before we really got good at those things. And I mean, now we've done 100 A/B tests. Those A/B tests have produced 143 million in additional loans and deposits. Like, I'm really confident in our ability to do those things, but I wasn't at first. We just believed that it was the right thing to do. And so we started doing it. So, but I can empathize with if all you've known is having these commodity products, you haven't had any way to differentiate, and you're saying, how am I going to possibly differentiate? Like, maybe you don't have it figured out, and it can be hard to figure out. And you have to develop new capabilities and you may have to do brand new things. So anyone can do it, but I think you have to have, for us, we had to have, you asked about belief. Okay. We had to have a strong enough belief about what was the right thing to do. And we strongly believe the right thing was that if we could use a website as a means to measurably help our clients grow, measurably increase loans and deposits, we believed deeply that was, whoever did that was going to win. And that's what we needed to do. And it was that belief that drove us toward differentiating.
It's belief, but then it's also honesty. There's truth telling.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I see, there's a lot of liars. And I was a liar. I was lying to myself. It's like the easiest person to lie to is the person in the mirror that's looking back at you. And when you're not honest with that person, you're going to lie to other people. And you're going to lie to people around you. You're going to lie to your team. And I think that's the hardest part of all of this when you're talking about what you went through and are going through, and as in myself. What role are we playing? And I talk a lot about story and narrative, because there's two heroes in a story. There's a hero, and then there's a helpful guide.
Mm-hmm.
And from my observation and the beliefs that I see a lot of leadership teams have, they believe that they're the hero in the stories that they're telling.
Mm.
And there's a challenge with this when you just look at basic narrative. And what led me down this path was going to conferences as a speaker. And I've been speaking on stages since probably 2007, 2008. But it was around 2012, and I vividly remember this. I was at a big national conference, and there was a keynote speaker. And he kept saying, well, you just need to tell a better story. That's going to solve all your problems.
Mm.
Like, I agree, but how? What does that mean practically applied? Like, how do you do that? And I didn't know. And so in 2012, 2013, I literally went on my own personal journey, on my hero's journey, to learn about story and narrative and archetypes. And I mean, that's a conversation for another day, but I found that there are really only 7 different ways to tell a story. There are patterns in story and narrative structure. And when you start to understand those patterns, everything begins to shift in communication. Well, if you think that, okay, there's 2 key characters in a story, yeah, you have a hero, but you have an anti-hero, you have a villain. And if we're positioning ourselves as the heroes in the stories that we tell, i.e. communication, i.e. go-to-market strategy, i.e. the way that we position products on our website, the words that we use, the language, the verbiage, well, every single one of us, people listening to this podcast, yourself, you're the hero in your own story.
Right. Yeah.
Listen to the podcast, members, they're the hero in their own stories. So if they're the hero and someone else is showing up as the hero, no, they're not the hero. They're the anti-hero. They're the villain, because there can only be a hero and an anti-hero. But then there's a third character, and it's the often forgotten about character. It's the helpful and empathetic guide.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't tend to, when we think about story and narratives, we tend to talk about heroes and villains. We never really talk about the helpful guide, and rightfully so, because the helpful guide is not there to take the spotlight. The helpful guide is there just to do one thing and one thing only, which is to guide the hero beyond the villain.
Yeah. But what's awesome about what you're saying is if you do think about some of your favorite stories, the helpful guide that you get to play a role as is often one of the most loved characters in the story. It's Yoda to Luke Skywalker. It's Gandalf to Frodo. It's Dumbledore to Harry Potter. You're
giving me goosebumps. Yes.
Yeah.
Because without these helpful guides, the hero remains lost. Without Yoda, without Obi-Wan specifically, Luke is just lost on Tatooine. Without Dory, Nemo is lost at sea. Without Gandalf, Frodo is lost in the Shire. Without Mr. Miyagi, Danielson's still getting beat up by Johnny and the Cobra Kai. And these are all important patterns to recognize. And the question is who are you going to be a helpful guide to? Who can you be a helpful guide to? To not just offer them another commoditized product, but to offer them help, guidance, maybe even just a little bit of hope.
Yeah. And you have to believe that you can be what they need you to be, and that you can be the best at something. A few years ago, we were working with a credit union that was going through a rebrand. We were helping them along with that. And we asked them some tough questions. One of them, we asked, and this was in a survey, we were surveying their senior leadership and their board of directors. One of the questions was, what are you the best in the world at? And, they could have, that's a tough question. You could also frame it as, what do you want to be the best in the world at? But what are you the best in the world at? And I'll never forget, one of the respondents scoffed at us, mocked the question. They said something like, the world's a huge place. What do you mean be the best in the world at something? And it was like, wow, well, there's your problem. They didn't, at least that one individual that was part of the leadership of this credit union, didn't believe that they could be the best in the world at something. And you think about it, that doesn't mean you need to be like, if you narrow it, so going back to niches and differentiation, like you can be the best in the world within a particular niche. It's not like you have to say that you have to be Usain Bolt. Like most people can run, So being the fastest runner in the whole world, yeah, like your chances, there's only one of 8 billion people that's going to be the fastest runner in the world. But if you narrow it down, like, could you be the fastest in your neighborhood? Or, take it just into a totally different context. Like, there's a credit union we work with called NW Preferred, and they had the nation's first tip charter trade industry practice, and they decided to focus specifically on serving insurance agents. And so they've developed products that I've never heard of anywhere else. They have loans that I've never seen any other bank or credit union offer. So I think they have like one major competitor in the US, maybe another one. So like they're targeting this niche that they have the potential to be the best in the world at offering loans and accounts to insurance agents. So you've got to believe you can be the best in the world at something. And when you narrow your focus, it helps you to accomplish that.
Well, as we start to wrap up, it comes back to the point I was making before, and your question is it's a very sound question. It's a very wise question. And it's when was the last time that you dreamed? When was the last time that you thought bigger than you've thought in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? Giving yourself permission to just be a curious kindergartner again. Go back to that, looking at the world through a lens of wonderment. And I think your question of what do you want to be the best at in the world? And to the point of the person who scoffed at that, well, the world's a big place. Red ocean, blue ocean. I want, make your world just a little bit smaller in a pond, to where you are the best. You are the big fish, because in the big ocean, you got big fish, blue whales, orca whales, great white sharks. I mean, you got all these predatory fish, but when you go into the ponds, you don't have to worry about this predatory fish. Maybe you become the big fish, but you're caretaking as well.
Yeah,
you're helping.
Yeah, and I like what you said about giving yourself permission to dream. And the movie Rudy?
Yes.
That's one of my favorite movies ever. And there's a scene where Rudy is sitting at lunch with his friend Pete at the plant. This is before Rudy decides to follow his dream. And Pete tells him, he says, "My dad said that having dreams is one of the only things that makes life tolerable." Mm-hmm. And I really, life can be hard. And I do believe that dreaming big and thinking big, I know that's part of what inspires me. And I think that can inspire anyone to take the leap that they need to take to do what they know they should do, and be that guide, find a way that they can serve people in a way that's powerful, that takes them beyond just being a commodity and doing something that can really make a difference.
I'm going to build upon that. I'm going to send everyone off with something they can do with your thought. Who do you want to be? Who do you want to be when you grow up? Who do you want to be? What do you want to be the best in the world at? Set a timer. Get your phone out. Get some paper, pen. Go hand to hand. Scratch, write, draw, dream. And then have your leadership team do the exact same thing. I think you'd be surprised what you come up with.
As we wrap up, if you are serious about escaping the commodity trap, escaping the cage of commoditization, and you want to transform your financial brand, text me right now, 832-240-1922, because I want to send you a free website assessment from my friends over at Metrify. This website assessment is your first step to getting clearer messaging so that you can level up your loans and deposits.